It's a final countdown. Yes, we're just hours away from the launch.
This journey that I'm on, it has been a long one for me.
So once the launch and the blast off has happened, don't switch off your TV screens, because after that also you'll have that absolutely stunning cinematic moment. I was in Florida a few weeks ago when the launch was scheduled to happen. Wasn't meant to be because it got pushed several times. In fact, there have been 7 delays in the actual launch date of the AX4 mission. But obviously no chances can be taken in a manned mission like this one. So it's been a long wait for all of us, but finally the date has been given. Tomorrow, NASA, Axiom Space and SpaceX is confirmed is when the launch will happen. And for all of those details, it's happening tomorrow, 12:01 p.m. Indian Standard Time. It's at about 2 a.m. Eastern Time there. So Florida at 2 a.m. Here in the afternoon on India Today, we'll be getting you all of those live updates. It's at this time that India will be scripting history courtesy Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, who is part of that mission. And as in fact the pilot, the lead pilot of this mission, he is going to be the second Indian to go to space, the first ever to go to the International Space Station. And this is how it's going to happen. Remember that this is a collaborative effort. NASA, Axiom Space and SpaceX have come together. The rocket, Falcon, the Dragon capsule, all SpaceX's equipment being used. Axiom is a private body that's involved. And NASA, of course, is also looking into this as a collaboration that's extremely important for them. This mission was originally planned for May 29, so you can imagine how many delays there essentially have been. But it's been postponed 7 times, technical issues cropped up, bad weather cropped up, even an issue at the International Space Station where you will have the Dragon capsule docking and this entire crew, 4 of them, including Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, spending 4 days. Now, the mission is being commanded by Peggy Whitson, a former NASA astronaut, Axiom Space's director of human spaceflight. She's done this several times, which is why she is the captain. Then you have Shukla, and it's historic for several reasons. For us in India, of course, but besides that, 2 other countries who've also got their astronauts who are mission specialists from Poland and Hungary. For them too, it's a big deal because much like India, they too are seeing an astronaut going into space after 4 decades. Let me bring in right now Shibu Tripathi, who's joining us with the latest updates on this. Shibu, you know, we've been exchanging notes almost every single day on when this launch will happen. Fingers crossed that it happens tomorrow. You know, there's no confirmation till the very last second, but it looks like now finally everything's come together in the sense that NASA's also given the go-ahead. The last delay happened because of issues at the International Space Station.
Definitely, Akshita. This has been a long time. We've been waiting for a very, very long time for this mission. As you rightly said, this mission was initially planned to launch on May 29th. That is about a month ago is when Shubhanshu Shukla was to go to space. But there have been multiple delays, at least 7 delays that we have noticed during the course of the last 1 month. It all began with the first delay was on May 29th itself. When the Dragon spacecraft developed several issues in the harness. Now, just to point it out that this is a brand new Dragon spacecraft that SpaceX has produced for this mission. This Dragon spacecraft was initially planned to return Sunita Williams from space, but due to scheduling issues, they re-designated this mission for Axiom 4 mission. So what we are looking forward now is for the launch. On 29th, when the launch was delayed, it was issued to in the month of June. That mission was then delayed due to issues of weather. There were high winds in the launch area which led to a postponement. That was then followed by a liquid oxygen leak in the Falcon 9 rocket. So we have seen that not just the Dragon spacecraft but the Falcon 9 rocket itself has had several technical snags during this mission. But fortunately SpaceX has repaired all those missions. Now when all those was sorted, we had a leak in the International Space Station, the destination for the 4 astronauts part of the Axiom 4 mission. The last postponement that happened recently on June 29th June 19th was due to a leak on the International Space Station. NASA did say that they have stabilized the leak, but they wanted some more time to analyze what was happening. This leak was in the Russian segment of the International Space Station, which then called for a lot of coordination between NASA and Roscosmos, the Russian space agency. Finally, we think all that has been sorted. We finally have a launch date of July 25th. At around 12:01 p.m. is when the launch is scheduled to happen. The liftoff will happen tomorrow in the afternoon. And hopefully this time all will be well and we'll see an Indian finally in space for us. The second Indian in space for us.
Yeah, and hopefully this time tomorrow, Shubhu, we're going to be talking about how successful that mission was and how beautiful that moment of liftoff was. But just to elucidate what really Shubhu was talking about, Shubhu, I'll ask you to stay with us, all the delays that we've seen. And it's been a multitude of factors, essentially, that's meant that we've seen nearly a 1-month delay in this mission and liftoff. Let me explain what were the delays. I was there in Florida, couldn't witness the takeoff because of these issues. May 29th was when the first date was given. But it didn't happen then, and this was something, of course, that was pushed much before. Much before May 29th, the announcement was made that, look, it's not going to happen because of an issue in the Crew Dragon. So you had in the Dragon capsule an electrical harness issue that was immediately identified. So much before May 29th, the notification was given that we're pushing this to June 8th. June 8th, however, a message was sent across that the Falcon 9 rocket is not ready, that SpaceX needs a bit more time. It was pushed by 24 hours. And this was, I remember, while I was in Florida, that the communication came through that, look, we're pushing it from a Tuesday to a Wednesday. That Wednesday, June 9th, there were unfavorable weather conditions. There are so many factors. What this tells you is how many issues, factors need to be looked into for this kind of a launch. Mind you, on the same day, there was another launch. But because this was a manned mission, no space for chances to be taken. And that was the message clearly by all of the agencies involved. So then it was pushed again by another day, by another 24 hours. But this time there were several technical issues also that were identified. In the rocket itself, in Falcon, there was an liquid oxygen leak as well as a faulty actuator that was identified. So SpaceX said that, look, no chances to be taken. We need to fix these issues before we go ahead with a date. So this was as of June 10th. Now, right after that, there was, in fact, talk, okay, this could happen in just a few days from now. But then there was another tricky issue that came up, which was at the International Space Station. Why does that matter? Because remember that this crew will be at the International Space Station for 14 days. So they wanted to ensure that all issues are ironed out. But it was at the International Space Station that then a leak was identified in this Vesta module. So right after that, there were 2 other delays that happened. It was then slotted for June 19th, June 22nd. But then, because of the one issue at the International Space Station, we saw it constantly getting pushed. So while in the beginning, it was SpaceX essentially saying, look, hold back for launch, towards the end, it was NASA that said that the International Space Station must be fully ready. But look, now we're at that stage where it looks like we can finally count down to the mission. Tomorrow, 12:01 p.m. is when blast-off will happen. So all of the action that we're going to see of Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla emerging after quarantine, meeting his family just before that launch, that will all take place tomorrow. Mind you, while we've seen this 1-month delay, all of the 4 astronauts, including Group Captain Shukla, have remained in quarantine. So while, of course, it's been a long wait for them, just imagine how the astronauts have been waiting, but this is something that they fully expect and are fully prepared for. But what can you watch out for tomorrow? What will the launch look like? We've got a very interesting representation of what exactly will happen tomorrow when it's liftoff, essentially. When that countdown of the 10 seconds ends, what happens? I'll break that down for you. This is the structure that essentially will take off. Falcon 9 is the rocket. This is a reusable rocket, so it's the second mission that is being used for. So when it takes off, initially, of course, you will see the ascent of it moving up, and it's super fast speed. The first stage is that of separation, and this is essentially the first stage separation that will happen. This is right after it's left Earth's atmosphere. Now, there are 2 trajectories that you'll need to track here, but I'll focus first on what happens to the rocket. I refer to it as a reusable rocket. Here's why. It's very interesting to see this. It'll be absolutely spectacular to witness. The rocket then essentially does a flip around. It changes this direction it's going in, almost like a vehicle doing a U-turn, makes a complete turn to head back into Earth's atmosphere to come back and dock. So you'll see it coming down essentially, and then using aerodynamic guidance, the grid fin steer lift produced, of course, by the first stage, it will then start directly moving down. And the way it does this is because you see the engines also being used. It will be, in fact, lit up one final time just as it gets closer and closer to touching down to ensure it's a completely controlled fall down back to its station. So it won't land where the takeoff was, but it will be very close. It's going to happen at a docking station that's already been identified. This is the second mission, mind you, like I told you, that the rocket is involved in. The first one was the Starlink 1210, and that was beautiful imagery. I'm sure you remember it went viral, of the Falcon making its way back to the docking station. So we've told you about that. The other trajectory to watch out for is the Dragon spacecraft. This is the capsule that will dock at the International Space Station. So after the first stage of separation, it will continue on its journey. Then there's a second stage of separation, and then it'll keep going on its journey till it docks at the International Space Station, which will be 20+ hours after takeoff. So essentially, while tomorrow is blast off, tomorrow 12:01 p.m., Thursday morning is when you can essentially expect that the docking at the International Space Station will happen. Now, I'll take this back across to Shibu for more details on exactly what that will look like. Shibu, we've given essentially an idea to our viewers of what exactly will happen come tomorrow when blast-off occurs. But for Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, what makes this hugely historic is that this is the first time we're going to be seeing an Indian at the International Space Station.
Definitely, Akshita. I think it's going to be one of the most picture-perfect moments, not just for the world, but also for India specifically. Shubhanshu Shukla, who is a test pilot, a group captain in the Indian Air Force, a serving group captain in the Indian Air Force, will become the first astronaut to visit International Space Station. Now, we know Rakesh Sharma was the first Indian to visit space, but he was not part of the International Space Station. Group Captain Shukla will be the first one to not just go to the space station, he'll live there for 14 days. In those 14 days, he'll be conducting over 60 experiments, 7 of which are designed by ISRO for India for its own human spaceflight program known as the Gaganyaan mission. So it's going to be a very, very interesting mission. Now, as far as talking about the tomorrow's historic moments that we are expecting to see, the first visuals are expected to come sometime around 9:30 or 10 when we start getting the first visuals of Shukla getting out of those the vehicle assembly building and meeting his family one last time before going to the International Space Station. His wife and his 4-year-old son are in Florida with him, awaiting for that moment just like us. Post that, he'll be entering the Falcon 9 rocket and then the Crew Dragon spacecraft with the AX-4 crew, the 3 members. As you explained, the Falcon 9 is a reusable rocket. Now, it's very interesting to say that this rocket that will launch Shubhanshu Shukla has been used previously as well. It was a Starlink mission which was used to launch Falcon 9. And during that mission, the liquid oxygen leak was first detected that eventually led to the postponement of the launch. Now, post-launch, once the Falcon 9 returns to land, it's going to be very, very interesting for the next 28 hours. Now, this entire journey from launch to docking with the International Space Station is scheduled to last about 28 hours. On Thursday, around 4:30 p.m. is when we are expecting the docking to happen with the International Space Station. So it's not just going to be a very, very interesting day on Wednesday, but also we'll be looking forward to Thursday when Shukla, who is the mission pilot for this entire mission, a test pilot in the Indian Air Force and now a mission pilot for the Dragon spacecraft, he's gone through an extensive program of training across multiple countries, across multiple continents for preparing for this mission. He'll be responsible for docking the entire the Dragon spacecraft with the International Space Station. Now, the entire Dragon spacecraft in itself is autonomous, and his role will not be eventually to pilot it per se, but he'll be in a supervisory role. So if anything goes, if anything misfires or there is any misalignment, he'll be responsible for taking control and manually docking the spacecraft to the International Space Station. And that's when they'll eventually enter the space station for their first mission to space.
Okay, very, very interesting details though. So, there's very little chance for any control. Everything's automated essentially, and they ensure that everything is set to protocol, that the docking happens successfully and rather smoothly at that. But yes, you're right in pointing out that it's Group Captain Shukla's responsibility to ensure that the docking is successful. And what I noticed in Florida is everyone refers to Group Captain Shukla, including, of course, his crewmates, as Shuks. So that's a nickname, essentially, that's picked up rather well in America, and all of the crewmates, Axiom Space, they all refer to him as Shuks. So here's wishing Group Captain Shuks all the very, very best. You know, some very interesting images will come in, as Shubhu told you, from the moment when he gets out of quarantine. He's going to be meeting his family. Very symbolically, they'll be taken, in fact, to the launch pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. They'll be taken there in Teslas. Symbolic messaging there for SpaceX, for Elon Musk. But thank you very much, Shubhu. Shubhu will be live with us from tomorrow early morning as we'll track all those updates and the images that come in from Florida. We're counting down to that moment of launch at 12:01 p.m. But why is this such a big deal for India? Because 4 decades after Rakesh Sharma's iconic space flight, we're finally seeing an Indian going to space. Yes, you know, there's been Sunita Williams, Kalpana Chawla, but the fact that you have an Indian representing the country going to space is a huge, huge deal, and this time to the International Space Station. So let's get you our next report about what Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla's family also has to say about this rather special moment for them.
India's first astronaut, Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, looked down on Earth from the space and said, "Sare jahan se acha, Hindustan hamara."
ऊपर से भारत कैसा दिखता है आपको?
जी मैं बगैर किसी झिझक के कह सकता हूँ कि सारे जहां से अच्छा।
That was in 1984. 41 years later, another Indian astronaut is ready for takeoff. Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla. In a historic joint venture between Axiom Space, NASA, ISRO and SpaceX, the Axiom 4 mission will lift off from the Kennedy Space Center to the International Space Station. At the controls will be Shubhanshu Shukla, piloting the 28-hour flight alongside 3 other international astronauts. The crew will spend 14 days in space. They will conduct over 60 scientific experiments, from medical research to space robotics.
Namaste. I am Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla.
The first Indian ever to visit the International Space Station, Shukla will also assist in key spacecraft operations during launch and docking.
This is such a proud moment because this locality is witnessing something which was unbelievable for this family in the past. Kids, people coming here, clicking selfies with the posters of Shubhanshu, as the entire residence is full with the posters of Shubhanshu Shukla, wishing success.
Back home in Lucknow, there's pride, celebration and prayers.
बचपन का शुभांशु शुक्ला और आज के ग्रुप कैप्टन और अब तो स्पेस में जा रहे हैं, एक माँ के लिए कितना बड़ा मूवमेंट है?
बहुत बड़ा मूवमेंट है हमारे लिए तो जैसे बचपन में था वैसे आज हमारे लिए तो बच्चा ही है, अभी भी कोई स्पेशल नहीं है, लेकिन ये है कि हाँ अब वो चूंकि इतना अच्छा काम कर रहा है तो इसलिए प्राउड मूवमेंट तो है ही हमारे लिए। अच्छा,
बहुत बड़ा क्षण है, हम लोगों का बहुत प्राइड फील कर रहे हैं अपने को। जितना मतलब ये है कि गौरव महसूस हो रहा है कि मतलब हम लोग जो है इस बच्चे ने हमको ये शुभ दिन दिखाया है और इतना मतलब उसको वेल विशेज मिल रही हैं, इतनी लोग दुआएं कर रहे हैं, इसके लिए हम सभी का धन्यवाद देते हैं।
Our Josh is seriously high. How's the Josh, sir? Hi, sir. And we are just counting on that only. Super excited, super happy and super proud.
Shukla's home and school in Lucknow are decked up for celebrations. Posters, flowers and flags line the streets. The Space Odyssey doesn't end here for Shukla. He is also in line to be part of India's first human spaceflight mission, Gaganyaan, which is set for launch in 2026.
My sincere endeavor through my mission to inspire an entire generation back home in the country. I want to use this opportunity to ignite curiosity among kids. Even if this story, my story, is able to change one life, it would be a huge success for me. I am Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla and I am the mission pilot for Axiom 4 mission.
With Samarth Srivastav in Lucknow, Bureau Report, India Today.
So Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla of the Indian Air Force set for his tryst with history. But do you also know why most astronauts are pilots? The tradition of selecting pilots as astronauts dates back to the very dawn of the space age. Pilots, particularly those with military backgrounds, bring, of course, a powerful combination of physical, technical, and psychological capabilities as well, which is so important when someone's going on this kind of a mission.
Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla of the Indian Air Force will be the first astronaut holding an Indian passport to travel to the International Space Station as part of the Axiom 4 mission. He will be the second Indian to venture into space following Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, who flew abroad the Soviet Soyuz T-11 mission in 1984. Both fighter test pilots from the Indian Air Force. Even Indian origin Sunita Williams was once a US Navy pilot, and Kalpana Chawla, while not from a military background, was a trained civilian pilot. The tradition of selecting pilots as astronauts dates back to the very dawn of the space age. In fact, the first human to venture into space in 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin was a trained fighter pilot. Similarly, NASA's first astronaut, Alan Shepard, was also a pilot from a military background. Pilots, especially those from military backgrounds, bring a powerful combination of physical, technical, and psychological capabilities that align perfectly with the realities of operating in space. To begin with, pilots are trained in systems thinking and real-time decision-making. Pilots are physically well prepared for the extreme forces of space travel. Fighter pilots regularly train to withstand accelerations of 5 to 9 G, conditioning their bodies to stay conscious under intense pressure. Pilots are also trained in crew resource management (CRM). This includes communication, decision-making, and teamwork under stress. Today, astronauts come from all kinds of backgrounds. About 40% of all astronauts who have ever been to space were from non-fighter pilot backgrounds, and that share is now increasing. Bureau Report, India Today.
And mind you, the AX4 mission is also going to greatly help India and ISRO for Gaganyaan, which is a mission that Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla is a part of. So how will it really help as far as Gaganyaan goes? Well, number of factors really. First is simply with flight experience. Shubhanshu Shukla being a part of the Gaganyaan mission, and the fact that that won't be his first flying mission to space, will gain vital space flight training and obviously can pass that on to the other crewmates who are also part of Gaganyaan. Remember, there's a backup crew also for this mission, which includes also Prashant Nair, part of the Gaganyaan mission. So he too is getting trained in exactly what it means to be in space. Systems familiarity, exposure to the Crew Dragon, exposure to the Falcon rocket, to the International Space Station operations, to microgravity tasks. It makes a huge difference, not just for Group Captain Shukla, but remember that there's an ISRO team working actively with each of the agencies on this mission. So they also learn so much and so many takeaways for Gaganyaan. Global insights, ISRO is learning from NASA, from Axiom on safety and crew protocol. What is the protocol, the processes to be followed to ensure that in the Gaganyaan mission too, everything is completely foolproof. So many learnings that we can essentially get for Gaganyaan from this. It also helps India's mission planning framework for operational development, not just in Gaganyaan, but beyond as well. This is a huge opportunity for ISRO also to understand how these agencies who pull off launches, who pull off missions every few weeks and days, how they do it. This will help them understand that. Now, another very interesting aspect is based on the experiments that will be conducted in space. Remember that ISRO has also been able to handpick exactly what Group Captain Shukla will do, the experiments he'll be involved in. Crew nutrition is something they're focusing on. How? They're sending seeds, chosen seeds, multi-variety seeds with Group Captain Shukla to the International Space Station to understand how seeds actually germinate. This experiment will help in planning crew nutrition for Gaganyaan as well. So like I said, many takeaways. We're all extremely excited, but perhaps none more than ISRO right now. A team has been camped in Florida for the last many weeks, waiting for this very moment for launch. And like I said, we're all keeping our fingers crossed that it happens tomorrow at 12:01. Obviously, the number one priority is to ensure the safety of the crew, the safety of Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla. As I slip into a short break here on Super 6, India's clear vision and our future as far as space missions go is extremely bright. Why do I say that? This is young Dangeti Janvi from Andhra Pradesh. She's set to travel to space in 2029. She is someone who has now completed NASA's International Air and Space Program, the first Indian to ever do so. She's even discovered an asteroid. As in fact we get you these images, 2029, she's the one to watch out for because she'll be heading to space then.